Thanks for coming. We'll do intros kind of around the room. So Danny's got an attendance list. I'm gonna kick it pretty quickly to Sarah Jane to do the meeting minute portion. And then I can walk through the final 2 or 3 agenda items, but all I would request first is we'll just go around the room and do intros, and then you can get into your official duties, if you accept that. I can hand you mine, but I'll pull it up on the screen too. Matt Schmidt, Deputy Code Official, City of Lawrence, counterclockwise.
Brian Jimenez, Assistant Director with Planning and Development Services, Code Official.
Justin McCray, Residential Permit Tech, City of Lawrence.
Mike Brunin, I'm a board member, filling the structural seat. Adrian Jones, board member, citizen at large.
JJ Williams, board member.
Laura Blanchard, board member, mechanical electrical engineer.
Chris Houston, board member, Class C contractor.
Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
First meeting, right?
Yeah.
Ward White Fire, board member. Sean Reardon, board member, architect.
Haley Zell, board member.
Sarah Jane Scott, board member, mechanical
And Chair.
and chair.
Chairperson.
Oh, I'm vice chair, I forgot.
No, no.
And then Ms. Bobby.
Bobby Flory, Lawrence Home Builders Association.
Sorry, I could run the long meeting.
Yeah.
Your bids for some project. I was glad to be here. Thanks.
What's your name?
That's
I'm like, who did they tag along with? Nobody.
partially why. I
That's
wanted to do it.
I thought they might have been doing some project or something. Who knows?
I think we're
Shadowing someone.
Shadowing
Yeah.
someone. Well, that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Sarah Jane, so this is the agenda, but I'll get the meeting minutes open and you guys can. It's them from May 6th.
So make a motion to approve it.
Do we have any notes?
Well, I'd like to say,
It's like the agenda.
before we make a motion to approve it, and I'd like to make a comment on the minutes. I think the minutes should have more content about what was said, who said it. It doesn't have to be very detailed, but at least the commission and mayor know kind of what went on at the meetings. Looking at these minutes look like more of an agenda than a board meeting minutes. I mean, we have the Home Builders Association here at the last meeting. She had comments. I'm sure they would be interested in what the Lawrence Home Builders had to say about anything. I made a few comments that I thought were kind of important. So I would just like a little bit more content in the meeting. I remember when I was on several boards, our commission and mayor at that meeting, they wanted to know a whole lot more about what was said, especially if it was a really important topic. So I would just like to suggest to staff that the minutes have more contents, even if it's a brief summary of what was said and what the topic was. I looked through the minutes of other boards before I came here, and that's typically what they do, is just to at least provide some content of the discussions, especially if it's something vital.
Duly noted, Adrian. I will get with Denny for some guidance on that and seeing if the video portion changes anything. I shouldn't, but we'll get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you, Frank.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say also it would be helpful because we talked about the building code implementation update. And we talked about the steps and kind of a timeline and adjusted a few dates. Like,
Yes.
this was gonna go first instead of this. So that would be helpful to keep in mind. Because I started thinking about today, and I was like, okay, which one was I supposed to look at? Was I supposed to look at one? And then I saw it was any, then I figured out it was gonna be NEC and I was like, cool. I don't have to hear a lot today.
We will-
That's not what I have to read this morning.
We will work on getting that to a different spot, okay?
Thanks.
So we're gonna come back with revised minutes, so we don't need a motion.
I mean, I'm not objecting to making a minute. That's up to you, Chairman, but if you want to come back, but I would just want.
Here's my recommendation. I would approve as is today with the note that we are going to explore changing the format of that for future meetings. Does that sound reasonable? Okay.
Is there a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
As a update on our progress, we are on schedule based on the memo. We have one more internal meeting on the IRC. So that will be one of the next ordinances to go out. We did receive a request today from Chief King to push the fire code into the middle of September. So I will revise the memo with the dates and send that out. We're able to flip most things around. Brian and I will go a bit earlier on some of the ANSI stuff, but it does extend our timeline, I think, 10 days from when we issued this a few months ago. So not a big concern, but you guys will see that when I send the memo out in a day or two. So instead of September 4, I think would have been our last day. It's going to be closer to the 18th potentially in September. So outside of that, no changes. We have sent to date all the ordinances that we've finished. I'm going to pull up item 4 here just while we're talking about it. In terms of future meetings, I think we'll need to schedule them more frequent than every 2 months. We'd like to try to do it once a month if we can accommodate. We'll start voting on these ordinances as quickly as next meeting. And we've only really got, if we just do monthly, we only have 4 or 5 for the rest of the year. So we would.
Matt, let's expand on that, make sure they understand what we're thinking there.
Yeah.
On the ordinances, I think we have like ballpark 15 or 16 total. We've sent some of them to you guys already that are pretty straightforward. The Building Code Board of Appeals ordinance, the contractor licensing, the trades licensing, dangerous structures, let's say.
Yeah.
Our thinking is, we don't want to vote on all these ordinances at the very end. That seems cumbersome. You may not have reviewed an ordinance for 3 or 4 months before you vote on it. Our thinking is we'll provide these ordinances in final draft form after we get comments from you guys, and we'll vote on those moving forward for adoption later this year, early into 26, as they come available. So we wanted just to throw that out versus taking all 15 to 16 of these at the very end and going through that process. That doesn't seem to be a very efficient way of doing things. So welcome comment on that.
I think in general, my feelings, especially dealing with the section that I have, and I'm sure you guys are all dealing with the same thing. There's a lot of changes in fire code that I'm dealing with, and it's a lot, even with what, was said by Chris. There is a lot to go over that impacts a lot, that could potentially cost a lot of cost to end users. And I almost think we're going, maybe, I know we want to get the project done, but some of the stuff, I think we're going a little too fast. And I don't know if I'm the one that feels that way or not, but it is a lot.
We are, when I resend this memo out, you'll notice that we've added a date to each internal review. We had started with 2, right? And that worked really well for all these ordinances that we've kind of banged out already. Now we're into IRC, energy, IBC, fire, right? Those are the 4 big ones. So instead of 2 weeks on those, we've added and made them 3, right? So we are starting to recognize that those are going to take more time as we get into these board meetings, especially now monthly. We'll narrow in, this one's going to be NEC, but we're going to narrow in on specific code to discuss it. And we may find that September 18th, 2025, we're not done.
Right.
That's okay, in terms of discussing with you guys.
I think it's important to note, if we haven't done a good job of that, I apologize. This is just a timeline that we've set to try to keep our staff on task, because you can imagine they're doing their job duties as well as looking through hundreds of pages of code. If we need to pivot, we'll pivot. If you come to us, Warren, and you say, I'm not there, then we're not there.
And that's all I'm asking for is I would rather get a well ironed out code and not have this be a big explosion to city commission from comments
Yeah,
and for staff, et cetera. So it's not a complaint. I'm all about getting projects done, but just like the staff, we're all trying to run our businesses and do what we do. So,
Right.
I mean, I'm definitely a team player, but it's like, I got to pump the brakes a little bit on some of this because I'm trying hard, but there's 4 of us going through the fire code. I mean, if you look at, they're looking at it as well, and we're still ways off.
We have slotted, I guess I'll say, in terms of this timeline, through mid-September is the internal only portion. We still have Q4 of 2025 in terms of discussing with the board. So I think that we will be done internally, quote unquote, done with our code research and amendment recommendations by the middle of September. Then I think October, November, December might be heavy board meetings for discussion in terms of the 4 big codes, I guess I would say. Because we're also aware very keenly that if there's a change in IFC, we may need to revisit it in IBC, potentially IRC, energy everywhere, right? So it's not gonna be linear in terms of our progress. We know we'll have to back out between some of these code books as well. So I may, when I send this new memo out, I may expand, Brian, step in here on Q4. It's just a little paragraph. But we have Q4 essentially slotted for discussing everything with Building Code Board of Appeals. And we're kind of taking things as they go right now. So maybe I'll adjust that language a bit and show it a bit more clearly.
and
To
just
Walter's point.
expand on your comment about when we get to the commission level. My goal is we have completely vetted these ordinances completely through the board members.
Right.
We have your vote. The perfect world, we're 11-0 vote on every ordinance, right? That may not occur, but I don't, there's part of a negotiation here. If certain people have strong feelings about certain code amendments, and we try to get to the end result of where the vast majority agree in moving forward with an ordinance. So by the time we get to the city commission, and by the way, I have not given a specific timetable
For that.
Right.
we're calling it early 26 is how I describe that. So that could be February, it could be March, it could be April, it could be May. I'm not tied to that. My goal is to get there before the first half of 26 is over with hopefully a adoption date of July 1. That's typically the way we do it. But there's a lot of moving parts here. The board makeups are drastically different than they were in 2017 when we did this.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. There's a lot less people to help with. I mean, this is a huge project for
Right,
everyone.
and if you remember, when we first met after the first year, that's why we decided as staff, we would change things up a little bit, just out of necessity, that we would take the heavy lift. Because we don't have 5 Kevins on the plumbing code or 5 Sarah Janes on the mechanical code. We got 1 person. So the board makeup in itself creates a different way of doing things. So I think the big key to us is we're flexible. We'll listen to you guys. We're all about transparency. If we have to change up something, let us know. And we'll do our best to accommodate schedule changes.
Appreciate it.
Is that fair?
Could you expand a little bit? Sorry, Matt, you just made a good point about this might not be a fully linear process.
Yep.
But Brian, you mentioned maybe we'd approve some ordinances early on to not have to do them all at the very end. Like, I just worry if we approve something early on and then we have to backtrack, like you said, oh, wait, actually, because we changed this in this code, we need to go back to the other code. Also,
Well, the ones I'm thinking of off the top of my head are ones that shouldn't have those type of
Like-
potential impacts.
Like be ones that are
Ones that you share.
standalone
The
ordinances.
ones that we've
basically.
shared initially are quite honestly very simple.
Yeah.
right,
They might be
Okay.
terminology strike throughs and amendments. Those are the ones I'm thinking of.
okay, that makes sense.
You know, the energy code is connected to the residential code and there's NECs connected to the IRC so there's a lot of moving parts. I think the ones I'm talking about in my mind are the ones that should be, for lack of a better term, slam dunks on
Okay.
approvals.
Okay,
Does that
makes
make,
sense.
does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
The only thing I'd add is we agree on, not to speak for Brian of the division necessarily, but we agree that it should take a bit more time to thoroughly vet it versus just pushing it out the door by a certain date. We don't have a date for that reason. So I'll kind of expand the language a bit on the Q4 paragraph as I'm talking about it in terms of how we have those 3 months allotted for finalizing the ordinances with the building code Board of Appeals. And to Brian's point, it's our intention that we're all aligned before we go to the commission so that we're not deer in the headlights with questions, right? So, thank you.
That includes you, Bobby.
Yes,
I say that with humor. We want to totally vet everybody that has an integral part of this, so.
stakeholders too. Thank you for.
You know,
reminding me.
Just us skipping a code cycle, like we mentioned earlier in the year, is a big one. That, you know, we are looking, to remind you guys, we are looking at the 21 significant changes versus the 18, and then we're doing the same thing with the 24, comparing to the 21. You know, sometimes that's a futile attempt. It gets really convoluted very quickly, but some of that's necessary. The good thing about the ICC is they have significant changes books that we've got our hands on, so we can use those documents rather than just pulling up 2 books and going side by side. So,
And not to belabor, last thing I'll say on this, maybe for those Q4 meeting dates, they turn into more code-specific agendas. Once we're through all our ordinances, instead of here's the update, then we get into the meat and potatoes, like, all right, let's talk about energy, let's talk about IFC. Maybe we'll do it that way, and I'll list those out in the matrix instead of just a short paragraph. I think that'll make it more clear for everybody. Any other points, questions? I slipped it onto the agenda, perhaps a bit prematurely, but Ms. Bobby kindly sent a letter yesterday about the energy code. We're not there yet internally. The schedule's not there yet. We sent the letter to everybody. We'd like to try and discuss NEC as long as we can during this meeting. If anybody wants to talk about that letter from the Lawrence Home Builders Association, I won't stop you, I suppose. But if you've got questions about that, I think we'll wait until the next meeting unless you want to catch Bobby after this one. Does anybody disagree with that? I know I just sent it yesterday. Okay. Do we want to get into the NEC? We being Brian, myself, and Justin, met with Adrian and JJ a week or 2 ago to discuss the ordinance that we issued a month or so ago with the electrical amendments suggested. We made some really good progress and appreciate Adrian's and JJ's time. We'd like to potentially, Adrian and JJ, more or less have the same discussion in front of everyone to some degree, and then flush it out with some of the homework that we all left that meeting with. Not voting on it, not coming to consensus by any stretch, but presenting our findings. Justin led this up, so you'll hear him speak a bit. And then he's worked a lot with JJ, and then, like I said, Adrian thankfully weighed in as well. And you probably have a bit more to present too. So is it perhaps best to pull this ordinance up with what Justin had, kind of let Adrian react to it again like we've already done it, and then we'll open it up to questions? Yeah, right.
I don't think that's. In addition to that, Matt, as we discussed prior to the meeting, I think we probably need to give a little bit of some high points of
Yeah, we'll start with the big hitters.
some big hitters, so to speak, and go from there.
And I'll do that as I pull it up. Not to limit it to these items, but potentially for discussion today, the big items we discussed that require, I think, a bit more discussion are arc fault, the GFCI, and then also surge protection, yeah? So Justin, if you want to kind of start potentially your intro, I'm gonna pull up your documents, so we just have them to, your ordinances to track. And then you can walk through it a bit easier.
And I think it's relevant that, I know Justin introduced himself, but Justin's been with us since August of last year. He's currently in the residential permit technician person, so if you're dealing with residential permits, you're likely to talk to him. And most importantly, he comes from an electrical background. And, so you might want to just briefly talk about that real quick.
I spent nearly 10 years as an electrician, both in the city of Manhattan, Kansas, and here in Lawrence over the last 3 or 4 years. Prior to that, I was in the low voltage industry. I worked for nearly a decade doing similar type of work without, carrying a license. But yeah, my experience with the electrical field is why I was given the task of heading up this particular book. So kind of like to maybe just kind of tell you my process, how I approached it. So I looked at the existing amendments to the 2017 NEC, and I tried to decide what I agreed with, what I didn't agree with. Most of the amendments that were adopted in 2017, I wholly agreed with. There were some really good things that, as an electrician working in town, that I encountered when I moved to Lawrence that I really liked. The GFCI requirements for small appliances, for example, was amended out in 2017. So in the city of Manhattan, we had a lot of GFI nuisance tripping for garage door openers, refrigerators and deep freezes, things like that. We found ourselves putting outlets behind dryers, or washers, washing machines, higher than the washer, just so you could access them, because it was cheaper to put a GFI into an outlet than it was to put a breaker in at that time, right? And so when I moved to Lawrence and started working, I really, really liked that. In 2017, the powers that be decided that a single outlet would be acceptable in lieu of a GFI in certain applications for a device that doesn't get moved a lot. Refrigerator, for example, you plug it in once, you push it into place. It's not a, commonly used, you're not plugging in a bunch of different things, right? So I looked at the amendments and kind of went through them, refamiliarized myself with what they were, and then, included the ones that I thought need to be carried forward. And I did that with most of them. I got to be honest, I was gunning for the arc fault requirements, right? In my personal opinion, I don't believe that there's enough empirical information to show that arc faults actually prevent enough fire in the current applications to warrant the requirement as expanded in 21 and then the 20 and then the 23 NEC. So if you guys read my proposed amendments, I proposed deleting the entire section, right? I did that on purpose. I knew that I would be getting some pushback, right? I expected some pushback, and I want to hear some feedback from you guys. We've gotten a little bit from JJ and Adrian, and I appreciate that. I would like to point out that this is just a draft, right? And it's not something that I feel is like set in stone. I wanted to give you guys an idea that this is what I was looking at. And I also like to point out that, for the things that I've amended out, it's kind of a reminder that I'm not forbidding them from being used in our city. I'm just suggesting they not be required. So the big ones there, I deleted the arc fault section. I proposed deleting the arc fault section and the surge protective device requirements, in addition to requirement to have a emergency disconnect on the outside of the building. So that's kind of where I started with with my amendments. I gave some of my proposals to JJ early on. He gave me some feedback. He had some more suggestions that I agreed with. There were one or two that I didn't agree with. The ones that I agreed with, I included in my proposal before I sent it out to you guys. So I didn't expect you all to read through my entire, amendment. So, if you didn't, I'm not offended by any means. I know that some people wouldn't have a dog in the fight.
No one's offended.
But for those of you that didn't bother to read it and have opinions, I would certainly like to hear them.
And I want to interject one thing really important to remember to note to people that haven't reviewed ordinances before, because it can get really confusing. Remember, strike throughs or deletions, underscores or amendments. And when we send out these ordinances in a better draft form as they near, we are going to have a comment on the outside margin on the right side that says a carryover amendment to let you guys know that that's nothing new to this edition. This is a carryover from 2018. So we want to make sure that's very clear. So when you guys are reading that, you will understand, like, maybe you'll have a comment on it, but you won't be like needing to research it and know the history. It was there. It's been there since 18. So keep that in mind.
So I guess all that being said, I'd like to open the floor for anyone to voice their agreements or disagreements. So if anyone would like to state their opinions.
It might be worth saying also that I'm sorry to interrupt, that as currently amended, we have already amended out.
We amended out in the IRC the requirement for arc faults in all but bedroom circuits.
So that's where we're at now.
That's
right?
where the 2017 amendment.
So I just have a question, and this is just me, because I don't work with arc faults at all. This lapses over into fire code issues for me as well. So that kind of brought it up. So yes, I did read yours because I wanted to do a little research on it. It was very gray to me on how an arc fault worked as opposed to a GFCI and what it additionally does. So me not knowing about it, I work with a lot of electricians. So I called many electricians, Kansas City, Topeka, Lawrence. Hey, I've seen there's some problems on the original series of arc fault units that were out. I've seen there's been some problems. Do you still have as many problems you used to? And unanimously, the response was, and this was obviously not a very technical query. I was just wanting to know, much better than what it used to be when they first came out, and even the second generation. That was horrible. But
Right.
like technology, and we all deal with that. You buy something new, you're basically figuring out how to fix what they've designed to make it a better product. Most everybody said that they have a lot less problems. Most problems that they're having with it is either, I have one electrician that had said, no, we don't need it at all. They need to be gotten rid of because they were developed by the breaker companies to make extra revenue. That was one electrician's fault. That was just his response or his observation. Almost all the commercial electricians I talked to said, no, they're great in a commercial aspect as long as they're installed correctly. Same thing with residential. If they staple the wires too hard, it'll cause issues with it. Everybody unanimously complained about stick vacuums you buy at your local retailer or certain gaming devices that'll trip them, and so I get there's both sides of that. And dealing with fire, we don't want a lot of false calls on that. It's just, it doesn't work, but we want to make sure that life safety is protected, property is protected. Those in that order, we want life safety first. And if that device can save somebody's life, you have to kind of weigh where those go. And believe me, I'm not disputing your thoughts, because coming from the field, I see that stuff all the time. We are always the guys that the engineer designs it, and we have to figure out how to make it work.
Mhm.
So I get where we're at on that, but, and I wasn't present in that conversation when you guys had it, but I mean, do you still feel like they shouldn't be there, period? Or do you think there's a little bit of variance that should be there?
So I see, Adrian had some good points about, the life safety, right? The reliability of them has increased for sure. When I first started using them, they were a nightmare.
Yes.
If you plugged in anything with a motor, it was gonna trip that breaker, right? But I would like to point out that we still have nuisance strips and GFI technology, and that was implemented in the 50s.
Yeah.
Right, so, it seems a little too forward thinking to say that, well, we've ironed out all the issues with our phones, right? And so, where they are more reliable, sure, I totally understand that. But once again, I feel like the NEC has been expanded numerous times since, I believe it was in 08, 09, something like that, where they were expanded on the first time to kind of include every single circuit in a residential situation. I honestly have to admit that I don't have a lot of commercial experience. I prefer residential electrical work. So in the commercial environment, same deal. The engineer says, this is what you do. You just kind of follow the plans. I had more service call type of work where we
Probably got it.
with
Right. Yeah.
strips,
And I get it.
things like that. So
my only pushback was, and it's not, believe me, I like to learn from anybody that works in their field because there's a lot of things that I may not see. But as a father of children and being a previous firefighter, if I can not have anybody killed and that safety device can save that, I'm for that. Now, doing the entire house, I don't know that that's it. But children do things sometimes, plugging things in and out that you can be concerned with. And honestly, some of the small appliances that are manufactured, what are the safety protocols on those? Could it be, even a lot of electrical connections are glue connections. They're not even a solder connection. And so could there be something actually wrong with that appliance and how it's manufactured in this trade? I don't know, but I wanted to ask more of that because it's actually in my code section too on some of the stuff going on here. And I want to make sure that deleting it doesn't put life safety.
And let me say this, we've given staff to think outside the box on some things. We want to generate that conversation. This is a bold
ask
statement that, so, we wanted to have a good discussion like this, that going to Bobby's side of the things, the National Home Builders Association recommended two options. One was to strike it out entirely, and the other one was to eliminate laundry rooms and what was the second one? Kitchens. So, I realistically, I don't know if striking it in its entirety is a good thing. But Justin was compassionate about it, so we let him run with it to get it to this point. So I just want to make sure everyone understands.
Well, and I appreciate that. I don't want that, like you said, I brought out a couple things today. I don't want that to seem like complaining. I'm just trying to find facts, and just you having that ability from the field and seeing what actually happens. We deal with it in my industry. If people don't service things or they don't do things right, then you have a lot of cry wolf, and that's just as dangerous as but there could be potential. So
right.
As an electrical engineer here, on the residential side, a single and maybe townhouses, I can see eliminating a fair amount of that. On the commercial side, I'd say no. I mean, there's too many apartment buildings. There's too much liability there. There are people that aren't, in an apartment next door that can take care of all that. So I think on the commercial side, as an engineer, I'd never take that out, just the liability on the commercial side. Residential, I feel a little bit different. I think it's gotten a little out of control also on the residential side. There are opportunities that you could eliminate some of those.
So I'll put you on the spot a little bit. Currently just bedrooms only. Do you have an opinion of keeping it the same or just going as is what we have on the books right now?
I think bedrooms, living rooms, anywhere where children can probably be in there. Kitchens are pretty well monitored. I don't think, necessarily, right. And and usually there's an adult in there. I mean, the kids aren't, messing around in there. Rec rooms is a good one. I don't think you need them in closets always. I don't think so. Laundry areas, I don't think so. So there's some opportunity there that I think, we could limit where they're put in, but I think they're still needed definitely on commercial.
Well, sorry.
Oh, okay, well,
All I was gonna say was that's synonymous with all the commercial electricians, so every single one were like, absolutely need to be there.
Yeah.
So, and that was exactly the same.
so, I somehow can't take my code official hat off. But, so as a code official, my personal sentiment was, you should have a really good reason for amending the codes. And then, so as the board, we're providing recommendation to the commission and the mayor about these code amendments. So, and I want to make another point about this, but my personal sentiment is you shouldn't amend the codes. There are some reasons for life safety devices. And so these AFCIs have been in the code. I've been an inspector and I've been part of these here, and I was an ex officio member to the electrical board. And we're through the first generation, everybody realized that those were issues. We went through the second generation, and it's one of those things where sometimes the markets approve things and not the codes, but as the research, I read the whole thing too, by the way.
Bragger.
So as we went through the first generation, I did the research. Second generation, I've talked to electricians, I've talked to fire code officials, I've just talked to a whole bunch of did some research before coming in and discussed this at the board meeting. And so one of the things I looked at as a code official is that what were the trends as far as these devices? And the trends have been to expand the use. So I think and first of all, here, I just got my book Amazon today, but these things are written by an army. I've looked through the code development cycle for the NFPA, and it's an exhausting process. Sure, the stakeholders get in there and they try to get their items in the board. But if you go back and look at the NFPA code development cycles, I mean, it's an army of people, both engineers, lots of engineers, architects, contractors, everybody's involved in that. And so I've always been of the opinion that who is the city of Lawrence, unless we have some really good research to go by, that since we don't have 5 electrical board members, now we got, it's a combination. So if there's an amendment, we should look at that amendment, look at the reasoning for the amendments, and then as a collective group, make a decision on those amendments based on research we've done. Now, it's been said that, there's tripping, nuisance tripping. My research personally, I don't have anything in writing to bring to the board, but I can tell you from my experience as an inspector and my conversations with electricians that the third generations of these arc faults are much improved. And they've gone back and expanded the areas where these are required. So I think we're on the right track. Justin, I can't remember when they first came into the code. Was it this?
I think it was
14 or 17? Or
I think it was in 02, to be honest.
Okay, so, and I remember some of the discussions with the board and with the electrical board when it first came in. I think we first discussed it in the 11. And it was like, yeah, everybody was like, wow, the trip, so on and so forth. But the research that I've done with the manufacturers is they recognize all the arc faults work by an arc creates a certain wave. Right. And so they got little computer devices in those breakers that recognize that waveform, and it trips the breakers. And as the manufacturers research these, they retest them with vacuum cleaners. They retest them with the little power surge devices, and they work on those, and that's how they've improved over the time. So if we're gonna amend any provision like I say, of life safety, we should have a pretty good reason for doing so with information and research to back it up. So, you know, if you amend the energy code, houses are less efficient. If you amend AFCI's out, and then because of nuisance stripping is a good advice, but it's hard to justify that now. It's easier to justify that now as it was, but if it's cost, are we asking the city commission to amend out AFCI's because it's going to cost the builder? Or you can't justify that if there's a fire or heaven forbid there's a life. So we're going to recommend the change to the commission. We should have something to research and show we have something to read besides a conversation here. So mine would be to provide some information to research so the board can look at everything and look about it and talk about it and make an informed decision. But deleting the entire AFCI, those are dormitories, apartments, and I talked to Chief King, and he said the only frat houses, retirement. I talked to Chief King, and the only time they have problems is in these frat houses or dormitories where these
Overload.
It's electrical cords and the computer gaming stuff. That's where they're still having problems, and that was his experience.
And I also said, I didn't think kitchens need to be there, but I misspoke because I've had issues just plugging in these little chargers into those kitchen outlets that's sitting on the counter so your kids can grab them. Yeah, they'll trip them. I mean, because they're not wired good. I mean, they're cheap little things you can buy. And so, yeah, I think they need to be in kitchens too.
Yeah, and kitchen, and that's a good reason. I mean, but that, but you got GFCI backup on kitchens.
Right.
And so that kind of, that's my sentiment on AFCI. I agree that, there are good reasons, but I think the board should have something in front of them to vote and say that's a good reason. Because if we're recommending this to the commission and somebody has to defend it, my job was always defend Brian, defend the department head.
Defend me.
Yeah, defend you, defend Margene, or now.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, that was my job, but don't have the commission trying to explain something, don't have the mayor trying to explain something, and if they have to explain that this was amended and they approved it, and something happened, change or something, it would be.
So you're in the unique position. Obviously, everyone pretty much knows Adrian worked for the city for a long time and was a master code professional. So I highly respect his opinion. So I got two questions for you. Do you know where you stand on what you would like to see to continue the current amendment or just take it off the board completely? And do you recall back in 2017 when we were looking at the 18 code, how we landed on just bedrooms only?
I think it was just a carryover. I think it was just a carryover from the previous.
And that's probably the thinking, tell me if I'm wrong, is that's where you lay your head at night.
Right.
That's the most dangerous place you'll be overnight to get out of your house. And that's probably why we landed on just bedrooms.
Right, but remember now, we're talking about a timeline. So we looked at it then and we said, yeah, we're still having some problems. Now we're 2024. Have they improved enough to expand the use of those in different locations? Obviously, the National Fire Protection Agency believe they have. And ICC followed on, and their code body agreed with that also. So, like I said, let's do some research and see if what is the rate of nuisance tripping in these. I agree, Laura, there's still some issues, but first of all, no amendments to the commercial. Right. But in these other areas of where if it's not a life safety hit, nuisance tripping is nuisance tripping. Being electrocuted is a different thing. So installed properly with properly installed.
Well,
We're just not having
our calls. We're talking fire, right? Mostly.
We're talking fire. We're talking fire. Yeah.
Burning wire.
I'm talking about nuisance tripping like
Yeah.
stuff.
I
A
agree.
lot of those arcs start behind walls.
Yeah, that's,
And
yeah,
you don't know until,
it's,
especially in an old balloon frame construction home. Well, they, only if they rewired, but if that could be a big issue, especially those older structures. And then also, well, you talked about fraternities, sororities, those, a lot of those, they try to pass them through as residential.
Right.
And so if we amend only the commercial and we're not cognitive of what is going on with those buildings, that's a big issue. It's a huge conversation. You got the good award for the hard section here, but it's.
So I think we can kind of skirt around the commercial, multifamily dwelling, stuff like that by narrowing it down to saying single and two family dwellings only, right? But, I do want to point out, not to be disargumentative, that, inherently a device such as this, there's no empirical evidence that it is doing what it's, proposed to be doing, right? Everyone says, oh, well, we've had so many less fires, right? Caused by, these types of things, right? But is it really because of the, of the arc fault itself? Or, could it be the advances of monitoring wiring, right? The more protective nature, of the devices we install in residences, right? Tamper-resistant devices, things of that nature, more fire-resistant building requirements, things like this, I think, would probably, and this is opinion-based, I have no knowledge of, no data to back it up, but I think that the aggregate sum of all the other reasons to point to say that there has been a reduction in fires, the last 40, 50 years since, arc fault technology has been a thing, probably outweighs the arc fault in itself as the reason why those fires were prevented.
I think, and going back to something Adrian said, my opinion is for us to amend something out of a life safety issue, we got to have good data to support that. Them putting it in to expand the areas of use and installation, to me, the NFPA and all those boards and committees, Adrian, hope you agree with me, they vetted it to get to the point where the code adoption comes out. I mean, the code edition comes out. So if we're going to err on the side of less amendments, I think that's less work for us to do this than if we are going to amend something out in a significant portion such as this.
Warren, can I ask you, you've been in touch with fire. Do you have an idea of what their sentiment is in support of amendments, no amendments? I know obviously commercial, right? We don't want to mess with that. I think everybody, but what, have they expressed concerns or?
I can't really speak for them, but I can tell you what we talked about regarding, but I mean, their number one task is life safety, number one task. So they're always going to err on trying to save lives. That's what they do. Property also important, but not as important as life safety. I know one of the 3 individuals that I've worked with on the code with them was to take something like that out of the code, they'd want to see the data. What is the actual data? And that's kind of like what we're talking about here. Nothing against, because believe me, that's what makes good staff, is having this back and forth, talking about it, trying to talk it through. But, I have to eat, live, and breathe by NFPA. That is my whole rodeo right there. And I guarantee if it's in there, it will do nothing but expand on at a later date. So, and you're correct, they have huge staffs that write that. And it's not just, nothing is, don't take this wrong. I'm just saying an engineer that builds pens. And I'm not saying that anything bad, but you know what I'm saying? They designed this whole pen on paper and it looks great. And then you go to use it, it won't work right. So, and that's what I'm saying. I think there's some of that stuff that's it's vetted out through all that team of having to make sure it works and then just field experience working with it. Yeah, I would just say, I would reach out to Chris again and see what their thoughts are, but I can almost guarantee you working with him, he's very thorough and I guarantee you, he'll probably say, I want to see the data. I want to see data in, you know, what it's being said, and he's gonna go by NFPA, I guarantee it. Whatever NFPA says is what he's gonna probably base his opinions
I
on.
would say that's a fair statement.
Well, since 2008, I mean, we're not. Well, what we've adopted recently in Lawrence is a lot more, I don't know, liberal way of doing it, because since 2008, AFCI has been required in bedrooms, living rooms, sunrooms, parlors, libraries, dens, recreation rooms, closets, hallways. So it's just been like in 2014 that they went into laundry areas, dishwashers and microwaves. So there's been some changes along the way, but most of this has been required since 2008.
That's really.
So it's not a new requirement.
Yeah, so I saw that. I was like, well, how much? It looked like they're expanding too much in the
They're not.
23. What, there's just one or two items in the 23, right?
In 23 arc faults. I can look, it looks like, in basements,
If I remember right, there was two additions since 2018,
and hallway, no,
or
that's,
17, excuse me, I'm in, see. I think it was laundry rooms and kitchens, maybe?
Yeah, Laura, and our amendment hasn't changed since then, so we haven't recognized any advancement in the technology whatsoever.
So realistically, and I've shared this with Matt and Justin, coming into this meeting. Realistically, I probably would say, and Adrian, I'm looking forward to see how you respond to this. Probably two legitimate paths of travel on this subject. One is we carry the amendment over as is, and we require it for bedrooms, and that's the way it is. Or secondly, we look at more expansion, and it's a life safety issue. It's been vetted by NFPA. The third generations have shown to be more reliable, and we adopt it as is. But once again, we're going to take direction from you all, and see how. I think what we're trying to get today is we're not voting on anything. We're simply having a discussion to get feedback from you all to see which path or paths would you like us to look at moving forward. And this has been great discussion, by the way. So this is how I anticipate going. So no need to apologize to.
It's like, sometimes you feel bad, but you gotta do this.
No,
You get it figured
You
out.
got to do it because, you know, I've known Adrian for since 2002, and he's like, whoa, what? I'm like, I hear you, man.
You didn't have to say that, but yeah.
No, but in a good way.
Yeah.
From a former code professional, from a former city inspector and plan review person, he's done it all. So, you know, I knew if there was anyone in this room that was going to be making comments quickly, it was that guy.
Well, my sentiment, Brian, is that either we don't have any amendments, which I don't know that we're gonna go there from based on these discussions, or we expand it greatly to more match what the actual code says, and then recognize some places where there might still be problems. And that would be based on research. And I was hoping, Warren, that I talked to the NFPA, the person that keeps all the archives of the code development minutes, and she was supposed to send me the actual language from the committees that wrote it into the code. That would be very, very helpful. And so I'm waiting to get that. I'm going to continue to try, but I know that Chris has a vast database of NFPA stuff, and he's always able to get, I'm not putting everything on Chris, but.
No. Well, I rely on him a lot too.
Okay.
He uses our engineers too. It's the same, you know, because we have to abide by that code.
Yeah, and then, so they're gonna be, we know that they're gonna be gung ho for life safety stuff, and we already know where they're gonna come down under with their research, and their research to back that up, but also there should be some opposition research, if it's from tradespeople, or, which I think it's probably gonna come from, and it's gonna be, or from home builders, and I appreciate the home builders, but they're like, don't use them any place. You know, amend everything out almost basically, which I can't agree with, but I just would think the board needs to have something to look at to make those decisions, and I would not be opposed at all to expanding them to other areas, other than simply bedroom.
So as code's written right now, I'll just briefly go over the 14 areas, just so everyone knows. Right now, as written, there's 14 kitchens, family rooms, dining rooms, basically every room of a house, guys. Living rooms, parlors, libraries, dens, bedrooms, sunrooms, recreation rooms, closets, hallways, laundry rooms, and then the all-encompassing similar areas. So.
Or the whole house.
From my understanding, the main AFCI protection is now required in sleeping quarters for police, fire, ranger stations. Those are the big additions in this code.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
JJ, yeah, I think you wanted to say something.
Just to give my 2 cents on it, I'm still more in agreement with Justin on it. I'm a master electrician. I've been doing it for 25 years. I hold licenses in probably over 20 jurisdictions. I work in KCMO, Leawood, you name it, every jurisdiction in Kansas City, Platte County, Topeka. I have to renew everywhere and deal with every type of inspector. I've had inspectors tell me that, rebar grounds are dangerous because they can explode your concrete. I've had inspectors tell me all kinds of stuff. So, I've been doing this my entire life. I am still more for keeping the amendment as current as it is. My personal feeling is that in the name of safety, I think the vendors are continually trying to, sell us the most expensive, newest thing that they can. And I would say that I've heard this from people on the NEC board telling me this straight to my face. So I have 2 daughters. I have 2 boys. I want them to be absolutely safe. I don't want anything bad to happen to them. In my opinion, the more dangerous thing that happens in this town is people that are rogue out there doing their own wiring. I have never, I've been part of so many fire jobs, and I'm not an expert on fire, so I want to be really careful of what I say
I've
here.
seen a lot of fire trades and not.
Yeah, I want to be really
Yes.
careful that I don't overspeak,
Yeah.
but every time I've seen something dangerous, it's because homeowners decided he's gonna take it upon himself to do his own wiring. In my opinion, the houses that we build today that are built by builders are the safest houses that they've ever been. And we're building to such a high standard. And yeah, I know we don't want to include cost on people for life safety. But again, you are incurring, we are talking about a town that can barely afford for people to live in the houses that we're building, barely afford to live in the houses that we are building. Not only that, but every like if I go to Topeka and I give somebody a bid to do a service upgrade, they just don't do it. They do not do it.
Because of the code
They say
requirements.
goodbye, no, because of the cost.
Well, the cost associated with the code requirements.
Yeah,
they have in
cost
place.
associated with the code requirements. Goodbye. I can go out there and give 25 estimates for a service upgrade. I'll probably get 0. I can go to Lawrence and give a service upgrade. I'll get them all. I get almost every single one that I put out there.
That's been an argument that I've made as well.
And I know we don't want, cost to be a justification for life safety, but again,
So just,
I think the biggest safety hazard is Joe Blow out there wiring his basement. And that's where I've seen so many bad things happen.
JJ, can you rather quickly tell us the cost differential of a
Oh, yeah, I mean,
A
like,
change
to
out.
do a service upgrade in Lawrence, and granted, like, if I'm in Johnson County, they do not require us to update arc faults if we replace a panel in Johnson County, nowhere in the Johnson County jurisdiction. So it's not necessarily all upgrades, because by and large, in Kansas City area, I work all over Kansas City. I work every single jurisdiction in Kansas City on a replacement. They do not, but in Topeka they do. So, but if I were to bid this job in Lawrence, it would be about $3,000. If I go to Topeka, 7,000 easily, and then some, because they have absolutely no tolerance for clearances. They have absolutely no tolerance for existing conditions. They have absolutely no tolerance for anything out there.
Well, I think you spoke something very true about, with the home builders. This is very important. You're right. In this economy, we're trying to put houses in. We
Yeah.
need to put, that is based
Yeah.
on our economy here. And for some reason, that's not being dealt with.
Yeah,
It's-
we don't
Yeah,
have
it's-
development here in Lawrence. We don't
Yes.
have affordable houses, even tenants to homeowners and all these other places, Habitat for Humanities. Those houses are $400,000. I can't afford a tenants to homeowners house.
Justin, let me ask you, speaking strictly of AFCI breakers, and I was trying to figure out, I'm remodeling my basement. I had to put in, I had an old square D.
Sure,
So the new AFCIs don't work in the old square Ds.
correct, yeah.
And so that was a $75 breaker. So with the AFCI, let's talk about, it would be a non-AFCI versus the AFCI on those areas. For, let's talk about new construction. What is the difference? First, most panels, what, 40 spaces?
Well, yeah, in new construction, you get the luxury of the neutral bar. And so you don't need to have the pigtail to connect the breaker.
Mhm.
So they make the breakers so that they're called plug-on neutral breakers, right?
Mhm.
And so, and by the way, in cities that do this all the time, I literally just buy a dual function breaker, because if I'm gonna AFCI, GFCI, now I don't even know the damn code.
Yeah.
I just put a purple breaker on everything, because it's like, might as well just have both, but at any rate,
So what's the cost difference between a regular and a combo?
they're the same.
Real quick, I want to interject.
Yeah, they're the same.
We scheduled this meeting for an hour. Is everyone okay going like extra 10 or 15 minutes on this?
Yeah, I'll stop.
But anyway.
No, I just want to, I want to respect everyone's
I mean,
time and acknowledge that, but
There's no difference in the cost between the neutral pigtail and the non-neutral pigtail. If you've got one that needs a neutral pigtail, same price. If you got one that is a plug-on neutral for the newer type breakers, same price. The only advantage of the plug-on neutrals is it keeps your panel a little cleaner. You don't have 1,000 pigtails that you gotta wire in and your panel looks like spaghetti.
So new single family, no cost difference?
From a
Huge
regular
cost.
breaker to an
Yeah.
AFC, yes.
From a
huge.
regular
an
breaker to AFC, from when you're talking about the old AFCI versus.
No, I'm talking about if we didn't require them in family rooms in these different locations. The
Huge
cost,
yeah.
like, I'm
Yeah.
trying to, what?
Like I said, the service changes from 3,000 to like 6,000 to 7,000, easy. Most houses that I wire, I have a budget of at least 3,000 to 3,500 in AFI breakers.
In just breakers alone?
Just breakers alone, for most houses that I do in Johnson County.
How much
So,
is a breaker, AFCI breaker?
well, I mean, it's around 70, depends on the breaker brand you use too. You do Homeline, I do QO. I use QO because I want a copper bus and I don't sell my customers an aluminum bus. So
Mhm.
I pay the higher cost, it's closer to $100. And then I'm gonna mark that up on the customer, I'm not here to lose
Right.
money. So by the time we sell to the customer, they're paying $130 on that breaker potentially. Cause we have so much loss in driving, anything, we're just trying to pay our expenses. People, when I give them these huge bids, they're like, man, you must make so much money. I don't make hardly any money, We're just getting by, but we're just trying to, so I am looking out for the homeowner here in Lawrence that can't afford it. We do not have affordable housing here in Lawrence.
On average, how many breakers do you use per house?
Oh my
10?
gosh, like if it's a custom home, it's crazy. We can't even do a
Standard.
200 amp panel now because you got a 40 circuit panel, that just ain't enough.
Right.
Typically, if I get a home that I can luckily put it in a 200 amp panel, I'll have to have that and then another 30 space main load, just because of all the requirements for how many circuits you have. So you're talking 40 AFCI breakers easily times,
how many?
40 easy.
If you require all of them, if
Yeah,
it's just
right.
bedrooms. and
Larger
hallways.
homes,
Right,
these are good size, 5-bedroom, 4-bedroom homes.
And,
good size ones.
Internally, Matt, Justin and I talked about affordable housing. It's always at the forefront of Lawrence, right?
Yeah.
Is there such a thing? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
But my point is, we understand you can't just strike life safety for affordable housing. But it does bring up great conversation about people trying to buy houses as starter homes or new construction, the addition.
Again, like I've got 2 daughters. I'm not putting AFIs in my breaker. My house is grandfathered in. I'm not gonna go sticking them in. I don't worry a bit about them.
Right.
You know, because, you know, I go through and check my house, I'm an electrician, not everybody can do that. But like I said, where I see fire, and again, fire department can tell me to shut up, but where I see fires and where I see things burn up is non-licensed people doing non-licensed work. That is where I see everything go bad.
Although I do have a couple receptacles that are fire burnt in my custom built house in the basement.
Yeah, sure, there's an exception to everything, right? I'm not saying that's an absolute, I'm just saying, as a whole, the houses we're building now, the new houses we're building now are so fire protected. It is crazy how fire protected they are.
I would like, sorry to interrupt, but I would like to, point out that, as someone that moved into the community, I was fortunate enough to buy a house that was built relatively recently, right? But, there's a lot of older houses on the market, right? As a new homeowner coming in wanting to upgrade their panel, currently, they could get rid of a Pushmatic or, a federal panel, right? For a $3,000 or something like that. If we remove our amendment as it's written in 2017, then all of a sudden, that's a cost jump that person might not be able to afford.
Well, and there, I'll stop you there, because most jurisdictions that I work for do not require it on upgrades.
That might be an amendment to
They
consider.
they do not ever require it on upgrades. And plus, the NEC code also said, the reason is also because the NEC says if you don't extend a circuit for more than 6 feet, you do not have to upgrade it to AFC.
So going,
So fireplace.
going back to Topeka, they're
Yeah.
the lone wolf that requires a full upgrade when you do the panel.
Yes.
Therefore, it's significant.
Yeah, but they can't justify it because in the NEC, even if you do a service upgrade, if you don't extend the circuit beyond 6 feet, you still should not have to upgrade it to an AFCI. It would still be
You
grandfathered.
just, yeah.
Because all you've done is upgraded the service.
Right.
So typically, they have no leg to stand on that.
So is that something we should look at, make sure we look at it in the existing building code?
I don't think that's an amendment. I think that is just
It's
the
in the
code.
code.
It's
It's-
already
okay,
in the
okay.
code. If you
It's in
don't
the
extend a
code.
circuit beyond 6 feet, you
Okay.
are not required,
Okay.
in my opinion. And I do service upgrades all over Johnson County greater area. Never have to put in arc fault breakers in those areas ever. So, I mean, like I said, I deal with like at least 20 jurisdictions, including KCMO, which is the hardest place to do. So, I mean, I want people to be safe. I want houses to be affordable. I want, I want a lot of things, but, and also I strongly believe that vendors push this stuff on to the NEC. The guy I talked to, he said that, the board of people that decide this is no longer electricians, it's vendors, it's Color Hammer and Square D and all these people. They're the ones that are, shaping this code, so.
Well, I've heard that too. I don't so much agree with.
That's fine, that's just my opinion.
In my opinion, you got residential and you have commercial, and I think commercial, you keep it per code. Residential, I think you do, this is my opinion, bedrooms, living room areas, playroom areas. And that's a little bit better than what we have now, but it's middle ground. So we're not adding too many, but we're not, per code, but we're not limiting.
Yeah, my sentiment is that if we're gonna amend the code, we should show that we've looked at some data. That's my only
And
thing.
that we're making it safer.
We're making it safe. It's proven in safety from the last.
Because the bottom line, the code is the minimum requirements. If they decide to go over that, great.
Yep.
But minimum requirements are there, and you're right, we've got to help the home builders, we got to build more housing, we do. I want to look at that too.
Yeah. And it's always a good thing. We did this in the energy code in the IRC. We're improving on what we currently have. We're not all the way there yet to what the code says, but that's a good reason. Yeah.
I know we've got GFCI and some other things. A really quick topic that I don't know if anyone knows of, the home builders, this is a big thing. It is not required to put outlets on islands or peninsulas anymore, which has always been that way in residential. Now they don't want anything under the countertop surface, and it's my understanding because we put a receptacle right there on an island and a kid would come by and catch it and pull the mixer on top of them or something. But now they're wanting to do pop-up receptacles on islands. And I I'm not a builder, but as a person that loves to cook, I think that's absolutely horrible idea. It's not
You got
required.
stuff spilling all into the
Yeah.
outlets. you
Dust,
got-
grease,
And it's gonna
water.
be-
Well,
They're
and I don't know that that's actually, I mean, as far as I understand, the 2021 has all these really rude, but the 2023 just says you don't have to have them at all, as far as.
Right, you don't have to have them, but if I
Yeah,
have
But
it,
if you have them, they have to be on the
right, I
top.
have a huge island as a person that cooks and I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't want two pop-up.
no, me and Justin proposed to just keep the,
Okay, good. I
The way it
don't
is
know
right
your thoughts
now,
on that. I think it's.
which right now it's no more than 6 inches of cord.
Right.
Yeah.
So that the kid, it's a very minimal amount of danger, I think, on that.
Well, in the GFCI, I don't recommend you listing some of yours, the reason was NFPA or suggested, and I wouldn't be agreeable to just follow, because they just delete them out of a whole bunch of places, their suggestions, so. Yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
So with that,
The GFCI topic, I'm simply still seeing Johnson County, no refrigerators, no garage openers, single receptacles, microwaves, single receptacles, sump pumps, all these things that we don't wanna ever lose power.
Right now, it looks like they're adding electric ranges, wall-mounted ovens, counter-mounted cooking units, clothes dryer, and microwave oven. In my opinion, none of those need GFCI.
Yeah, me either,
And that's
especially air conditioners, like
220 dryer.
just VFDs on air conditioners will trip one instantaneously. I mean, it's
So do our GFCI, do our current amendment match
I don't,
what's not, what,
well, this is what the 2023 is requiring new.
okay.
And so that's what I think we should take out. And if it would help, I can send this to everyone. It's kind of what I've taken from.
I think Jason can work his way through the ordinance and find that. So while he's looking at that, I'd like to suggest, give us some guidance on what you want to do with the AFCIs. So we can bring back at the next meeting what that looks like.
I don't have any data to review for that, to make a vote on the amendment. That's my sense.
Well, what I'm saying is, here's where I think city staff is probably at. What I'm hearing is we either don't make any amendments to it, or we keep the current amendment that's been carried over at least 1 or 2 code cycles.
Yeah, I would propose keeping the current amendment for.
But Laura, I think, mentioned possibly expanding it.
Adding
adding-
a couple rooms, living rooms, playrooms, just kind of the family areas. But
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be in hallways, kitchens, closets.
I would agree with
Yeah.
that.
Keep it simple.
So maybe we come back with something that keeps it with bedrooms added to the living areas.
Yeah.
Closets,
And single family and.
hallways, no.
No,
Multi-family.
Or
Yeah, is that what you-
2, yeah. Once you get into dorms.
Dorms and.
Fireplace, yeah.
One and two families.
We're talking 1 and 2 families.
We're just talking 1 to 2. I mean, in general, if you're doing a commercial job, everybody's gonna have to have the same cost
Right.
and the same print, and everybody's having to bid from the
Yeah.
same
Same
print. I mean, my advocacy is for people that are trying to afford just to buy a house.
Mhm.
But you'd be surprised how many of the contractors will come in and say, well, it's not required by code, so we didn't install it, in a 17 building apartment complex. And I'm like,
Oh.
well, it was on my plans. Well, then the owners are like, well, I saved this amount of money by not doing it. And I'm just like,
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
I mean, we bid it just to exactly how the print is in commercial.
Have you looked at what they're proposing to strike out of the GFCI?
I haven't.
The areas?
I mean, I looked at it before. I don't have it with me.
Well, it's quite a few areas, and
So, yeah, I've got it here in front of me. Once again, I carried some of this over, the exceptions that were, where we added the single receptacle for freezers, microwave, ovens, ice makers, dryers, et cetera, right? I kept that in word for word, right? But I also suggested amending out all the 250 volt requirements from the GFI protection.
I agree with that.
and I agree with that. Why did they do that?
Well, first of all, they're gonna be hardwired more than anything.
Okay.
And so I don't think you're gonna have the problems that you're gonna have with a plug-in receptacle.
Yeah, you got most of that high voltage stuff. What about EVs?
Yeah,
Is that gonna be?
that was
new?
Oh, I got no
That's a whole
opinions
different
on
thing.
that.
Yeah, but
Because
wouldn't
EV
it?
chargers have GFCI protection built
Built
in.
Built in.
Okay, and on Tesla's website, because the way the NEC is written, literally Tesla has no option for receptacles, because if you put a GFCI breaker on on a 50 amp receptacle, and you have any car charger, whether it be Tesla or anything, because I've literally done thousands of EV chargers in Kansas City, they will damage each other. They will not work with each other. The Tesla or any other brand will trip that GFCI breaker continuously and cause it to not function at all.
So we've amended that out.
Yeah.
it wasn't included in the 2017, and I have proposed to remove the 250 volt
Okay.
requirement.
All
Yeah.
right,
from-
sorry to interrupt. Where were you, did you say all the rest of them?
So all the 250 volts, so, you
Okay.
know, that your ovens, your dryers, you know, basically, yeah, anything that's, you know,
Heat strips
big
and
appliance,
furnaces, you know, anything like that.
Okay, all right.
So I'm not hearing any opposition to
No,
that.
no.
Okay, well, we made some progress.
You guys, the desks are right next to each other right now. I'm kidding.
We're about 17 minutes over. I respect everyone's time. Here's what I would suggest. I would suggest independently sending emails to Matt and me about what your preference is on the arc faults.
Okay,
Okay, number one, do the same with anything with the GFCI. I'm not hearing any opposition to the 250 volt elimination. And then, Matt, tell me if I'm right or wrong on this, but next meeting we bring back a revised ordinance? Or is that what the timeline shows, or?
I think so.
We didn't
I think-
discuss surge protection.
Surge protection.
Oh, we did
sections.
You wanna, can we hit surge protectors real quick?
Gonna be a long one.
Yeah, basically, I just amended it out. Mostly because, to be 100% honest, I'm not familiar with them, and, you know, it does add a cost to the bill.
And I want to do a little more research on
Okay.
it. I didn't feel comfortable with some of the items, taking them out, like in nursing homes and limited care facilities. But a lot of the multifamily dwelling units, I think we could take those out.
Okay, so how about individually do some homework on that and do the same type of correspondence to us? And then we can go from there.
JJ, what's the cost of a surge protector?
Install roughly around, it depends, well, they're a loaded question, you know, because
Ramp
What
panel.
is it?
you can buy $120 surge arrestor, you can buy a $2,000 surge arrestor, you know.
Let's
so-
assume you're gonna buy the cheaper.
Yeah, if you're gonna buy the cheaper one, you know, an hour labor, $250-ish, you know.
Is that with
just
the extra
come in because You
30%?
might have to move some wires.
Is that the extra 30% on that?
Yeah,
It
I'm
depends
gonna
on the
get my
size of service,
30%.
the voltage of the service.
Only whole house.
That's whole house.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do that in,
I skipped that.
well, I guess my question is on that, if there's nothing life-saving about that, it's just to protect your appliances.
Well,
To me, that's just a homeowner.
and how well do they work is what I wanna know, because we put surge suppression in
I
our
have-
alarms and they never.
They never, but I can tell none of them.
Ours are $100
Okay,
a
well,
piece.
I put him in a dentist office and we put really expensive three-phase ones and he's still burning up his equipment, so. I don't see them actually working. The only time I've seen a surge arrestor maybe save something was in a direct lightning strike.
Great.
And
Yeah.
all the surge arrestors blew and melted to absolute hell, but I was surprised at how few of his things totally melted. But when you get hit directly by lightning, all bets are off. You never know what's gonna happen with lightning. It's the most powerful force there is.
But it also addresses outside feeders, so not just whole houses.
Sure.
It has some surge protections required on different elements.
But in the commercial setting, again, I'm gonna say, if it's on the print, I don't care.
Put it
And it's
in. Yeah.
required
It's on
for
the
certain
print,
sizes.
yeah, but the engineer is gonna tell me that, is my point on the commercial side. So I could care less if it's in the commercial side, because everybody's gonna be bidding for the same.
Right.
The same thing, everybody's gonna be bidding, it's just like if you pick copper conductors for everything on the building, we all have to bid copper conductors if the engineer puts that on there. So to me, I'm trying to keep the 1, 2, and families dwellings reasonable, you know, and not overreach. and just for the sake of putting something in, is my point.
There is one other thing I think that should be taken out, in my opinion. It's the appliance incompatible with the GFCI protection, saying that the homeowner shall submit a GFCI unwanted tripping incident report to NEMA for every GFCI device is tripped. That is in the code now.
What section is that in?
Here's that pen.
210.8A6.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
And Bobby, I'll let you determine how you want to do this, but
That was a good catch.
perhaps you reach out to your organization. And any feedback we can get on these topics would be great too, because that's the perspective from the home builder.
I just wanted, just one more item in here is the emergency main disconnect. Justin, what is that amendment and where is it? Where, I don't agree with striking that. And what is that part of the code? What does it say?
So currently, as we have it amended in, from 2017, is that your feeder wires or service entrance conductors are not allowed to be more than 6 feet, which means that if you have your meter on the outside of your house and the panel.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I think that's
It's
good.
within 6 feet.
I think that's a good
A
deal.
firefighter showing up on site knows that if the disconnecting means isn't on the outside of the house, it's within 6 feet of the
Yeah,
panel on the
yeah.
inside,
Yeah,
right?
I think that's a
I
good one.
propose to carry that over.
I agree
Yeah.
with that one.
We did talk to Chris and his crew about that, and they
They
told
asked what it
us,
was.
they told us when there's a fire and they're shutting power down, they go straight to the panel.
Yeah, that's a good amendment. All right.
Okay. I would suggest making a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second that.
Okay,
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
great discussion. Appreciate everyone's
Do we need to
attendance.
ask about that, Brian,
What's that?
public comment, do we need to ask?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we do, because we got,
Anybody online?
doesn't appear that's all our staff, so there's nobody online to make a public comment.
There is
Okay.
no public.
Bobby, did you have
Bobby, yeah.
plenty of time to comment? I'm good.
You good?
Another opportunity.
Okay. All right.
Thank you guys for your feedback.
Yeah. Thanks for your research.
Danny,
Yeah.
I'll share this chat.
If you guys can
You can stop
do those
recording if-
homework assignments, I'd appreciate it.